What we're looking at today is actually the launch of version 1.2 of Uncle Sam's List. This is Phil Wenger. Phil owns the system. With Office of Management and Budget, he owns Max. So it's a large platform, collaboration platform, and reporting platform. The guy responsible for, and I want to point him out so you can buttonhole him as well, is Larry Nagel, right down here in the front, and he's the one that actually turns these harebrained ideas into reality and executes on them. He has a special translator built just for me to turn my harebrained stuff into real execution. Has been doing marvelously well at it for years, literally, at this point. We've got a couple of objectives that were actually established in this room, or not this room, but this forum last year. And the biggest things that we heard from the group last year's forum was that they wanted to improve the exposure on Uncle Sam's List, and they really wanted to see how we could help it close deals. And they didn't think that Uncle Sam's List on Max was the optimal solution within a fairly closed and constrained audience. So those were the dual objectives from last year's feedback that we heard from the ACT-IAC forum on shared services. We started with a base of 1.1, which was itself a substantial improvement last year, a whole lot better user experience on the site, and definitely a better profiling of the offerings. That was a very specific focus on what was coming up when the offerings were profiled. For the actual shared service provider, it offered a whole lot better way of, and I hope this is all just an eye test for you, for those in the back, you may want to relocate before this is all over, but a lot better editing environment and the ability to put content within the Max platform in a much better experience for the shared service provider. And finally, and this is going to become increasingly important as we go into version 1.2, we expanded the data structure of the offerings within Uncle Sam's List. And if we're talking about publishing that catalog out to everyone to use, this increased catalog space is going to become very important to moving that stream outside the walls of Max. So what were the drivers for going into this edition of Uncle Sam's List? We wanted to maintain the kind of level playing field approach that Uncle Sam's List and the Max platform really provide. It's not intended to be a persuasive platform, it's intended to be an informative platform. And that was what both the shared service providers and industry were feeding back to us, was that Max was insufficiently persuasive. Good, it achieved its goal. It was just informative. The trick was, how do you get it to a place where it is more persuasive? And what is that place that you can rationally do the kinds of persuasive activities that are needed to close deals? Moreover, what can you do to drive additional traffic to those locations so that you can get greater exposure on those shared service offerings? So we looked at a few things. One is that the limited access to the hosting environment, the Max platform itself, really constrained who could see the offerings. And that was direct input from this group. The sites that were linked to really are a barrier in the current offerings. There's just one kind of place you can go and link to, but there's nothing that can necessarily attract your attention. It's just one place that you might go to, and if you do go there, your identity is lost in the process. So yes, if I as Program Support Center at HHS look at referring traffic coming in, I see that it's coming from Max, but I don't know who it is, and I don't know how to follow up on it. And unless I offer them something that they're going to fill out some information in exchange for a white paper or whatever, and get that lead information into my lead management system, I can't follow that up and convert that lead into an opportunity. So it's very hard to connect the dots between Uncle Sam's List 1.1 and all of the persuasive material that both shared service providers and their contractor supporters can make available to describe shared service offerings. So going forward, what do we want to do? We want to increase the exposure, and we want to improve the conversion. And those are the two primary objectives that we'll look at achieving going forward. The improvements that were out there, again, leverage of the database, but we start to add additional functionality in version 1.2. Now, this was the original concept drawing for version 1.2, where we added a number of links, buttons, to the site to link into 6 kind of standard amplification areas for each of the shared service offerings. The undifferentiated button is just a link to an unsecure source. However, we can also look at providing both anonymous sources, just coming from Macs, and providing links that will provide the user information from Macs, the Macs user ID, email address, agency, location, those kinds of pieces of information that are within the Macs user ID area. Beyond those, we also realized that some of the service offerings, the 6 standard categories that we came up with, were probably going to be insufficient or inappropriate for that specific offering. So we've incorporated the ability to do custom labeling on these links, so you can go in and actually create something more germane to the shared service offering that you're promoting at this other address. So what do they link to? Well, presumptively they're going to link to agency or department public sites that are already visible or which will be made visible. Could even be pages which are only responsive to requests that come from Macs, entirely up to the shared service provider. Whatever you want to provide at that location, whether the shared service provider wants to build those little microsites, or whether they want their contractors as part of the statement of work to go ahead and actually build out those pages to provide persuasive content for service adoption. Whichever way they want to go, they can implement it. A secure link, if you're not linking to an HTTPS site, no Macs information will be provided on the URL. It has to go to an HTTPS site. Otherwise, you're just going to get the referrer information, which those of you familiar with some of the technology sitting behind it will understand. The announcement is that version 1.2 is live today. It actually launched this morning, and we are up and running now. All of the services that are currently in the Uncle Sam's List catalog can now add up to 6 links to each individual offering in either the standard categories or custom categories. You could have 6 custom buttons on your offering should you choose to go that way. And if you are linking to an HTTPS site, the Macs user has the ability to provide their user information. And where we originally thought that maybe the color of the button would be appropriate to indicate to the Macs user whether or not their user information was going to be provided, what we've done instead is actually go to an interstitial page, and you'll see it in a minute, where the Macs user is specifically having to opt in or opt out of providing their contact information to the site that's being linked to. And this is a much clearer, specific opt-in that the Macs user will have to take to actually provide their information out. The hope is that they will. But it also provides the opportunity for these microsites and pages, landing pages that these will point to be able to have other public catalog providers provide user information in the same format and same way, so that they can have a multi-source experience coming in and have much greater exposure going forward on their persuasive content. Again, these are the button labels that are there right now and available for use. The easiest way to probably do this is to actually run through and show you a demonstration of the site. So let me get that up and going. And this is Uncle Sam's List, and I am actually in a VPN connection from here right now into the HHS network, and from there I have done a PIV authentication in using HHS affiliated PIV security to get into Macs, and gone directly to the Uncle Sam's List site. So not surprisingly, I'm going to go to the support services area, and then I'm going to look at records management, and look over here at records management. It only has the one category, and this will open up a search and results from that search. If we're still connected. Are we still connected? There we are. Oh, well, here's one that happens to be from Program Support Center. Just a small amount of advertising that goes along with the price Ben made me pay for showing up here today. So let's go into that specific offering. It's in the standard format. Not much that is a surprise to anyone. It's all the standard categories of data that are out there right now. What's new for version 1.2 is if I go into edit mode, because I can go into edit mode.
Because you're authenticated.
Because I'm authenticated, that's right. And I happen to be a member of the right groups on the WordPress site that I'm visiting, which is Uncle Sam's List. There's something new down here at the bottom of the offering. And by default, the answer is no to this. But if I were to add a button to this service offering, all I have to do is click yes. I'm going to scroll it up a little bit so you can see it a little better. I'm going to put a custom label on this button, and it's going to say, let's say, pricing information. And do I want Macs user information? Yes. And where am I going to link to? Well, there's a couple of pages that are out there, and this page that's already on the PSC site contains actual price rate information that's available to the public today, but it may not be a part of what is on Macs, so I want to provide this additional information to the Macs user. So I'm going to grab this URL, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go back to my Macs editing page, and I'm going to paste it in, except that I'm going to go back and make sure In this one, actually, I'm actually not going to ask for it on this page because it's already public information. So I now have a button that's going to look like this, pricing information, and I'm going to go to that page. Now, do I want to show button number 2? Sure. What's behind door number 2? Go to that one, scroll it up a little bit, and now I'm going to actually do a link to another custom button, and this is parameter test. And this one I'm going to say, yes, I do want the Uncle Sam's List user information. And instead of going to the page up there or something that's actually on that site, I'm going to go to an HTTPS site that exists within PSC's GovZone, which is our e-business site that is only available on a secure access basis, so we have a certificate already installed on that server. And I'm going to go to a page called parameters.html. Not particularly original, but hey, it'll do for a demonstration and proof of concept. So let me go back up to the top here. And yes, I understand this statement. And yes, I'm going to submit this form. A little user experience problem right now is that it's not carrying forward the existing categories that this offering was offered under when you come back in to edit it, so you have to reselect it. We're going to work on that next as a small defect management issue within the backlog. Go for it from there, and then submit and preview the post. Now I've got the offering with my optional buttons showing up on the page, and as I scroll, those will stay with this. We haven't worked on static right side scrolling yet, but give us a little while on that one. Next harebrained idea, Larry.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. And I have to actually go ahead and publish this posting. Now I'm back on the live site, and my offering on the live site on Macs now has those 2 additional buttons that are out there that allow me to federate my content out to my Persuasive site and link to it from Macs. So if I want to look at my pricing information, I do so, and it pops up actually because I've got IE doing only tabs within the same security group. So since this is an HTTPS, it actually brought it up on my screen. I'll carry it forward to you. And this is the page that it brought me to. And sure enough, there is the pricing information consistent with what I had just called for. If I press on the oops, I called it the wrong thing, or ham-fisted the spelling on it. That can be fixed. But I'm going to, hopefully, the right site, and because it's in the same security context, it comes up to the interstitial page and says, Macs user, do you really want to provide your user information out to this site? And if I say continue and share user information, it goes to this page, which all it does is echo the parameters that are handed to it. And you're more than welcome to use this page as a test vehicle to actually do the buttons that you are going to be putting into shared service offerings, and going around and showing them. I've got my first name, last name, email address, primary phone number, agency, and bureau. So I've got HHS there, I've got DSC. The things that aren't there yet are city and state, because those are not part of the database that we have yet for Uncle Sam's List. Now, you can probably pull that based on some of the other IP traffic that you're going to be seeing from this session. But from the moment I touch this page, you've got session information associated with a specific user. So you can nail it all the way forward into leads that you can then follow up on because you've got the contact information to move forward. That should improve lead conversion into opportunities that can be pursued to closings. So that's really how that intends to work. Mm-hmm. So what does it look like from an architectural perspective, going back to the actual chat here? And I'm going to drag Phil up here just a moment because we're going to talk about how we're going to have to get from where we are now to the next step. So we wanted to do federation and integration. All right, now we've got the MAX catalog actually providing information out to both anonymous and secure pages and microsites in the shared service provider sites or their contractor supported sites that actually describe the offerings. So the way that that actually works is if it's going from MAX to a secure page, it'll give you the information that we demonstrated on that test page area. And if it's not going to a secure page, it will actually then just go to a standard web page. But you still can tell that it came from MAX, and because you know what page it went to, you know what category of an industry you're interested in from the page that it came from. So you may not know who to contact, but you know somebody's interested in that particular thing, and they were looking on MAX and chose not to be identified. So they're not looking for a follow-up, but you at least have some indication of interest and the value of having that shared service catalog at Uncle Sam's List, because you're getting traffic and exposure from that site whether you've gotten the actual lead information or not. Going beyond that, how do you get to a place where you've federated Uncle Sam's List catalog to industry? Well, if industry is to have a catalog that's going back and forth to these same links that we're going to put on these buttons within version 1.2, we're going to have a way of getting that catalog data out to prospective users of the catalog data. And that really is the next thing, is how do we get from that side of the graphic to this side of the graphic and leverage the ability of publishing these page links out to the private sector and to the agencies and service providers so they can drive even more traffic than would be generated exclusively from MAX. So, with that one, Phil?
Okay. These mics are both on, right?
Yes.
So let's leave this one behind.
Yeah.
So, we asked before, how many of us are feds? Okay. And how many of us are shared service providers? Okay. So from a shared service provider view, what we've seen gives us a better ability to know who's been looking at our service. So if somebody goes to the PSC page and they click through, now Richard has some way of knowing who that person is if they choose to share that information. We have the same thing with MAX, right? Someone goes to MAX and they click through, and I'd really like to know who they were and what they were interested in, because that helps me to know whether I should follow up with them or what else I could do to help them. How many of us are shared service consumers? And so, you know, from our perspective, we're both. We consume security services from FAA. We consume procurement services from GSA. cloud services, other services. And so the Uncle Sam's List gives us a place that we can look for these services to see what's out there. The data feed gives us a way, or the web data service gives us a way to now go out and make these things available outside the government. The government agencies are primarily the consumers of Uncle Sam's List, right? We're selling to other government agencies. Most of us don't have authority from Congress or OMB or anyone else to sell services outside of the federal government. But we're selling services to other federal agencies. And so Uncle Sam's List gives us a good way to communicate that. But it leaves some questions in the air for those of you who aren't federal employees and say, but what services does the federal government provide? And why should I care, and what should I know about? And so one of the things we're looking at is a public data feed that lets you, from outside of the federal government or from an authenticated federal government source, request from Uncle Sam's List what information is there. So the questions really is, from your perspective, how would you use such a feed? We can provide it based on how we best guess people are going to use it, but we'd be really interested in the folks who currently don't have access to Uncle Sam's List data, or maybe haven't been looking at it. What things would you like to be able to do and to search and to see from Uncle Sam's List? I'm going to leave it there. Questions or comments from the floor? Anybody see an interest in this?
Come on up to the microphone.
We'll count the heads nodding as, yeah, maybe it's a good thing to do, but I don't have any specific. The good news is web services are very generic, very easily to generalize. That is, we'll provide a service in a way that you can consume, and you're going to consume it in a way that's different than what we thought about, and that's okay because the service will allow you to parameterize and sort and select in ways that you like. Go ahead.
Do you need me in the mic for your question?
Sure.
John Sullivan, GSA. What is the plan? So you're going to enable industry catalogs. Is it two-sided, two ways?
It's one way. We're going to enable pulling data from Uncle Sam's List.
From out?
Yes.
Okay. Where in the planning is the notion of pulling in? And in which case, how do you filter and make those decisions as to what you allow in or don't allow in?
Yeah, so who is allowed to put data into Uncle Sam's List? Now, already, Uncle Sam's List is a shared service catalog for federal providers of shared services to other federal agencies. So we're not going to use it as a way to allow vendors to sell services to the government. That's not, there are services out there, GSA provides them, other folks provide them, but it's not something that Uncle Sam's List is here to do. We currently have an interface, so if you want to put stuff in Uncle Sam's List, you saw the page that you go to add information. We can pull information, and if there's a desire from the service providers to provide ways to do that, we can do it. We can allow the data service tools that we're using will go either way. And so I would say, turn that back around and say, if there's a desire to do that, let's talk about it and let's identify the use case and help to get it started, which really gets us to our last point here. Who are the early adopters for this? Who would like to consume this? Is there a public website that would very much love to put a list of Uncle Sam's List information out for the general public? Is there vendors that are interested? Who would like to kind of go first? Because we're ready to start on this very soon if folks want to use the tool. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a general question. I think small room, I got a pretty booming voice here. I think everybody can probably hear me.
Go ahead.
Is this in the sessions that OFID is hosting on shared services, service catalog, service portfolio? Are you guys wired into that in terms of just a standard way of deploying services through OFID? Are you guys talking to Beth about that? Or?
No, we'll follow up on that.
Oh, okay, because that's part of the reason we're up here this week is to talk about a standard shared services catalog for the shared service providers. And if we made this, I could see this being like USA Jobs. It's the only way to get to shared services catalogs. Is that your vision?
So you go to USA Jobs, and 99%, 95% of the jobs on USA Jobs, that's not true. A smaller percentage of the jobs on USA Jobs, you apply for there on USA Jobs. That's your way into them.
Right.
The other ones, you click on it and it redirects you to the agency's website where you do your own thing. And so Uncle Sam's List is the way to get to kind of a consolidated catalog of shared services. But when you actually want to consume the services, you're going to go to the PSC website or the max.gov website or the ESC website or one of those. There's an overlap.
It's a portal to everybody else's service.
It's a portal. It's a catalog, yeah.
Certainly willing to look at augmenting, as we did with 1.1, when we augmented the data structure for the service offerings. If the thought is that you need a central place to be able to do that, would certainly love to chat with you about Uncle Sam's List being the place where that central catalog is housed and distributed to all takers through data.gov or other.
Yes.
So again, likewise, I think I have a pretty loud voice. Let me know if you can't hear the question. So just wondering, I guess the policy behind this, was there a mandate that every shared service provider had to provide their information to this? And then at what level did that go? Was it OMB's mandate of approved shared service providers? Was it departmental shared service providers that are shared service providers within that department, or only doing external customer relationships or internal? I mean, so getting to how much can you trust the information that you're receiving here, because how valid is it? Is it the only place to get this?
Yes.
Or is a Google search pulling up the same thing if I say federal shared service providers?
Right. So your question is, how valid is it and how complete is it?
Exactly.
And the goal is that it be complete. The goal is that this be the place that you go to look for shared services. And as a consumer of shared services, my goal is that if I go here and look for something, I'm not going to miss, something that would have been really helpful for me to know, and it's not here. It took a little while to get past the cross-agency level, to get to the, what's the threshold for getting, if I provide services within my department, is that included here or not? And so we're making small progress on those things. The hope is that the major cross-agency services are all here, but I promise you there are gaps. And like any kind of policy, there's kind of levels of how strong is the mandate, but it's our desire that these things all be posted here. The completeness of the data is very limited. We're collecting a specific set of metadata, and then we're directing you back out to the shared service provider's site for more details that you'll be looking for, with the expectation that that metadata grows a little over time as we understand better what things can be compared across services.
So there is going to be an opportunity in the future to drill down into interdepartmental shared service providing versus external federally approved.
Yes, and let me just, my own personal view here is we should really be focused on providing services across agencies. If I'm providing services within my agency, one is I lose the value, I lose the scalability, the cost savings of scaling to a larger group. But the other thing is it further embeds the haves and have-nots. There's 150 tiny agencies in government that would love to consume services, and if I'm only providing within my own department, they don't have access to those services. And so my personal hope is that we can really push all of the service providers to provide across agencies and not just within their own department. There's a question behind you?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand. So Uncle Sam's List is only for providing shared services providers across government, it's not within, or is it a combination?
Across federal agencies, definitely, and hopefully within federal agencies as well.
So, for example, say HHS wanted to provide a shared service within HHS, not external to HHS. Should they get on Uncle Sam's List?
Yes, and they do. Some of the services that we have listed in our catalog entries right now for HHS are only offered within HHS. Some of them have not yet migrated into the next layer out in terms of going cross-agency. And some of them, frankly, are in the pilot stage, and deploying them within HHS is a dog fooding approach. So get it right before, with your own dog food, before you start handing it out to some other agency. So that's, but yeah, we're using it for both purposes.
Okay, so I came in a little bit late, maybe you already covered this, but how does an agency get their offerings on Uncle Sam's list?
The line of business provider, our manager, says, and essentially you talk to the line of business manager that CIO Council has designated for each of the shared service areas, and say, we want to be a provider in that line of business. And they say, yea, verily. And we pass the names on to Larry. Larry makes them magically appear within the MAX community and gives them the appropriate permissions to be able to go in and offer a shared service within the lines of business and for the agency that they're coming from.
So Richard's information, contact information is here on the screen. Scott, Bernard, and I are also fairly easy to find. If you have access to Max, there's always the find users, and look us up there, but talk to us afterwards as well. It's our desire to lower the burden, to lower the barriers to getting in. If you have a shared service that you are or are planning to provide within your agency or across agencies, talk to us and we'll get them into here. And the other thing also with contact information is this tool, we really want this tool to be useful. We want this tool to be something that benefits the federal agencies, both in marketing the services that are provided to other agencies and also finding services that are available. It was, there's a lot of years for me as a service provider noticing that the government was good at pushing, at marketing commercial services that are available on blanket purchase agreements and the GSA schedule and all those things. But we created a lot of barriers to providing shared services to each other. And so the intention with Uncle Sam's List was to break that down a little bit and make it easy for federal government agencies to find each other's services and consume them. So if there are things that we could be doing here that would make this more useful, more helpful to you, please tell us. Yeah, and then John.
You alluded to the CIO Council being the impetus for a lot of these points of contact. The CFO, CTO, are there any other fora where there are administrative centralized services that aren't IT related that are included in these?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most of the PSC, for example, within HHS, are not IT services. Benefits administration for transit subsidy is one area where our GoCard, for example, where we manage hundreds of thousands of those JP Morgan Chase GoCards that are transit subsidy cards. Now that's being expanded out right now. Interagency, we're looking at piloting that with Social Security Administration in November and taking it full interagency as we move forward with it. We're prepared and have already built the infrastructure to take it up into the millions of accounts at this point, and are moving forward out of the 5 and 6 digits into the 7 and 8 digit performance range for that particular service. And it also is things like ride share, bike subsidy. There's a whole bunch of different transit subsidies that are available and within different geographies. And we're taking it out on literally a global geographic basis for the subsidies that are available to federal employees in those spaces, and then just charging the agency on a per employee managed basis. So that's where it's headed out.
So there are things that we do specifically with the CIO Council because of where they sit and who our relationship with them. But for example, there's an Uncle Sam's List landing page on the CIO.gov website, but we put it there very hesitantly because we know that CAO, CFO, CXO, it's really a broad service. The financial services that I consume from GSA are not IT services, or from PSC are kind of sort of IT services, but they're really security services. We've done acquisition as well on the Max side.
Yeah. The other trick too, and you'll see a real shift here in the next few months, is that the leadership for shared services is passing from the IT&E business office within OMB over into the acquisition and financial services area of OMB. So it's moving out of the IT and putting IT into a context of something that is a much broader picture for OMB.
Yeah, and that's a really helpful transition. John?
Bill, the Partnership for Public Service, the Shared Service Roundtable,
Okay.
there's a project in there to at least prototype some enhancements to this beyond what this release. Can you speak to what they're going to do?
I can't, can you?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
And we're eager to, from our perspective, we're eager to learn and to hear what the next benefit will be. There's, Larry's been doing some magic in keeping this thing growing and changing as we have needs, but we've got some more capability there. We've got some more ability to bring in some new features, and we'd very much like to do that.
And not to overstate the obvious, but the notion of, when departments are building internal catalogs or inside of services building catalogs, that the actual catalog itself of shared services might be offered as a shared service. That it reused.
Yes.
And not have people build other catalogs. They ought to be able to reuse this model.
Yeah, which is actually interesting because we actually did this tool. Uncle Sam's List was originally a tool for a different area within cross-government collaboration, and they were not able to get all the policy issues they needed to open it up. But when the IT community then needed a catalog of shared services, they used the tool that we had already developed. And so, like all of the shared services, write once, use many. We really want to get these things leveraged across government. So if you need a catalog of something else, and we can do it either in this environment or somewhere else in the Max environment, we're really eager to help with that. Thank you, John. Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.